Yeah, no, I just wanted to no, first of all, great to connect with you, all of you, and thanks for this opportunity to interact with you. And I just wanted to connect 5-10 minutes before just to
Yeah,
see
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
everything is okay.
Yes, sir. Actually, we'll be live streaming this on YouTube.
Okay, okay,
And here we will, in this main link, we have only few students who are the host and all. The class teachers will join from here, and they are presenting it to their students. So we have almost 100 to 150 students connecting with us. Grade 9 to grade 12 science students are there with us, sir. Almost all of them, grade 9 to grade 12. So here in this link, you have a few students with you who will be interacting with you as you
okay,
finish, yeah, highlighting and enlightening the students with your topic, and then they will be they are so much interested to know so many things, and they will be asking you that, sir. So how would
okay,
you like? Yeah, so this is how it will be: a brief intro, and then the floor is for you to speak.
okay. Perfect, perfect.
Right.
Yeah, so I think no, my idea was to to
Yeah.
give an overall idea of, because it's sustainability is a very broad topic,
Right, sir.
and
Yes.
my idea, and also considering the what your interests are in with school children, I think I've tried to keep it overall,
Yeah.
briefly touch upon the different concepts,
Right.
and then I will let, depending on the interest, to specifically ask questions, and then we can take it from there. I think,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And
okay.
also, because we also have been working on sustainability a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
children getting a right path would be really helpful. And for this, actually, I was told to inform you that our vice principal, she won't be able to connect today. She's also very much interested in SDGs and SDG goals. So we want to keep a meeting with her.
Okay.
Yeah, one day whenever you're flexible with your timings, we can just have a meeting with her also, sir. So you can be in touch with me and let me know when you will be able to conduct, so that we can meet in a meet, and then we can go for a discussion, like how, because you have been into innovation and sustainability, and these are two things which we want to inculcate into our students. They are doing, but then it comes from a hand like you, it would be very, very helpful for us, sir.
Sure, sure. We can discuss, maybe sometime next week or something. Yeah, when we can fix
We
the
work
time.
on, yeah, sir.
Yeah,
For a
for
Sunday
sure.
is a working day, and if you find any time on that day, definitely I'll just take an appointment with her and with you, and then we will connect, sir. Inshallah, we'll do that. Sure. It's been
Okay,
so nice
sure.
of you. Yes, sir. So,
Sure.
and then you have your PPT, I think so, right, sir, with you?
You mean the link to
The
join?
slides. Yeah, no, no, the link
Just
you have.
share
No,
my
you
screen.
can, yeah, you can share your screen, sir. That would be better, because you would be having the right, like, which slide when to show, right? So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that would
Okay.
be better. And also, we are just waiting at sharp at 3, we will start, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
Somewhere, something incredible is waiting to be known. Myself, Nahida Najmuddin, the Deputy Ruby House Captain of New Indian Model School, Dubai, and I am welcoming you all to the NIMS Science Week 2021 Site. This event will be live streaming on our YouTube channel, and the link is right in the chat box. Yeah, here you go. We also have about 150 students joining from their classrooms. Science and everyday life cannot and should not be separated. With this amazing thought, let us start today's event. Oh, wait, you are not about to start without the blessings of the Almighty. I welcome Umaira for the Holy Quran recitation, followed by its translation.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم تبارك الذي جعل في السماء بروجا وجعل فيها سراجا وقمرا منيرا وهو الذي جعل الليل والنهار خلفة لها لمن أراد أن يذكر أو أراد شكورا وعباد الرحمن الذين يمشون على الأرض هونا وإذا خاطبهم الجاهلون قالوا سلاما والذين يبيتون لربهم سجدا وقياما والذين يقولون ربنا اصرف عنا عذاب جهنم إن عذابها كان غراما صدق الله العظيم. Translation. Blessed is the one who has placed constellations in the sky, as well as a radiant lamp and a luminous moon. And he is the one who causes the day and the night to alternate as a sign for whoever decides to be mindful or to be grateful. The true servants of the Most Compassionate are those who walk on the earth humbly, and when the foolish address them improperly, they only respond with peace. They are those who spend a good portion of the night prostrating themselves and standing before their Lord. They are those who pray, Our Lord, keep the punishment of hell away from us, for its punishment is indeed unrelenting. Thank you.
We were, are, and will always be motivated by the words and actions of our teachers. I now welcome our Honorable Head of Science Department, Mrs. Reshma Rahman Ma'am, to enlighten us with her thoughts.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. A very good evening to everyone present over here. Indeed, it's a delightful moment for me to be welcoming Mr. Digo Aruchami on our event as the speaker for the Ski Talk today. Sustainability for us has been a corner of interest always. Our students have been participating and doing various projects on sustainability. And having you here, sir, is indeed really an encouraging moment for our students as they would be enlightened and you would be focusing and providing them with the knowledge on innovation and sustainability. As I told you, they have been learning about sustainability. They know about sustainability, but I definitely would be expecting more from your side and how you will be comparing it with the development happening in European countries and also in countries where we live, like in UAE. I'm so thankful to you, sir, for having accepted our invitation and being with us today. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Reshma ma'am, for the introduction, and good afternoon, students. So, do you want me to start already, or can I share my slides?
So we have a brief introduction prepared by one of our students. So yes.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. And now I'm all set to welcome the central attraction of today's event, our chief guest. Are you excited to know about him? Well, I'm not going to reveal that. I welcome Fida TR to introduce the chief guest.
Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Fida TR. On our second day of SciTalk, we have a very unique personality with us, I must say. I'm really happy to introduce our chief guest, Mr. Digu Aruchami sir, who will be illuminating us regarding sustainability in European countries. Mr. Digu is originally from Kerala, but grew up in Coimbatore, Tamil Nadu. After finishing his bachelor's degree in energy and environmental engineering from TNAU in 2009, he moved to Bangalore to work in the corporate sustainability team of Infosys, which is one of the largest IT services and consulting companies in India. During his university years, he was one of the co-founders of an eco-club that worked to create awareness among fellow students on the issue of climate change and encouraged them to take personal action to reduce their environmental impact. He was also recognized as an international climate champion from India by the British Council in 2009, and he participated at the UNESCO World Youth Summit on Climate Change in Stuttgart, Germany, to share experiences from the perspective of Indian youth. He has worked for over 5 years with Infosys in their corporate headquarters in Bangalore, managing several projects in water conservation, water treatment, and organic waste recycling projects in different campuses of the company in line with their environmental sustainability goals. He also worked on sustainability strategy consulting for global companies and managed the annual carbon emissions public disclosures of Infosys. In 2014, he moved to Barcelona, Spain, to pursue his master's degree on cities and sustainability after securing a 2-year Erasmus Mundus scholarship. He's extremely passionate about sustainable development and the application of technology and scientific approach to find solutions for global environmental challenges like climate change and air and water pollution. Currently, he is working as an innovation manager for a technology company in Barcelona with a focus on developing innovative sensor solutions to detect airborne pollutants in indoor and outdoor environments at an affordable price. His hobbies include mountain hiking, running, travel, and he is an avid reader. Mr. Digu also has a passion for traveling and experiencing different cultures from around the world. Wow, I think Mr. Digu is the perfect person for day 2 of our SciTalk, and I hope all of you enjoy and benefit from the session that follows. Thank you.
Thank you, Fida, and welcome, sir, to our SciTalk 2021.
Thank you for the kind introduction. I think it was a bit to explain about what I've done so far. And it's been a very interesting journey working in this sustainability space. And so again, as I said before, thank you very much, Reshma ma'am, to your principal, to everyone, to your staff, and all the students who organized this session, and giving me an opportunity to share my experiences and ideas about sustainability from both because I have an experience working in India and also working in Europe. So I do have an understanding of different perspectives of sustainability and how it is applied in different parts of the world. So I've prepared a short presentation for you to, so it's easier for you to follow the concepts. And so, as you said, sustainability is a very, as you know, since some of you would have read about concepts of sustainability in your school curriculum, as well as Reshma madam mentioned to me that you are also involved in some initiatives on sustainability in your schools. So it's a very, very good thing that you're already very aware about the need to be sustainable and reduce our environmental footprint and contribute to a better planet for all of us. So I'm very glad to share my experiences with you. So I will try to, in my talk, cover in brief the basic concepts of sustainability, and then go into deep depth about some of the examples from Barcelona, where I live. So we have the city has implemented several initiatives, and also general in terms of the European context. Also touch a bit brief about what, for example, UAE is doing with respect to sustainability. And then also wanted to, since we also have students from a 9th grade to 12th grade here, I think it's also good that especially students in the 11th and 12th grade know about career opportunities if you are looking to pursue career in the sustainability. So I will go through these topics in the end, and in the end we can have a discussion about in general about questions that you will have, and we can that way it's useful for you as well. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. So since the students have already introduced me, so I'm just to remind, I'm originally from Kerala, from Palakkad in Kerala, and I grew up in Tamil Nadu, and I worked for 5 years in Bangalore. And then I'm based in Barcelona for the last 6 years. So I've also learned have to pick up new things in Barcelona. It's a very, very nice city. So the idea here that I want to present before we touch upon what European countries are doing with respect to sustainability, I also want to address, just to clarify, the concept of sustainability. So when we are talking about sustainability, the original the background of sustainability earlier, the focus was more on environmental sustainability, like, for example, idea of reducing pollution. So this was during the maybe 20 years ago. The main focus was mostly on making sure that the air pollution is reduced, water pollution from the cities is reduced. For example, by recycling water before it is discharged into rivers or lakes, etc. So the earlier concept was very much focused on environment. And but in the last 20 years, the focus has moved to more global, where we are kind of combining three different aspects of sustainability, because the word sustainability is something directly translates to a concept of being sustained over time. So whatever you have now is we are able to sustain and create more and progress more in the future. So that is the whole idea of sustainability. So the world scientists and global thinkers, they combine the concepts of that for humanity to progress in the future. We need these three concepts, which is the environment, the social aspects, and economic aspects to function well, in order for the world to be a better place for everyone. So that was the whole idea of what is sustainability has become. And of course, depending on where you are, depending on which sector you are working for, whether you are working in the government or you're working in the private sector, your scope of and importance to these different areas will differ. So this is something that you will probably, if you do a little more research, for example, what does a transport company do with respect to sustainability? So for their main focus would be to reduce their air pollution coming from their vehicles. For example, what does a water management company for example, the company that is supplying water to Dubai, and if you check what they are doing, so their focus would be more on ensuring that the water quality is good, and in ensuring that there is no pollution from the residues, the wastewater that is generated from cities, etc. So this concept is very broad, and each depending on where and sectors, which companies, or depending also on different regions where you are. For example, in the case of Dubai, the concept there is a lot of focus, for example, on water, because it's a very dry place, so the water is a very precious resource, and also about energy is also a very important aspect in Dubai, whereas it is not the same in Europe, for example, here, because water is a concern, but it's not the most important concern. So here the concern is more about air pollution, concept of biodiversity, and things like that. So these are different approaches that you have. So based on this concept of sustainability, and so we go into the next concept of what is sustainable development. So you apply this concept of sustainability to development itself, because earlier, as I was saying before, maybe about 20, 30 years ago, so when you say development, the main focus was on economic development, to grow in terms of create more revenue for companies, create more taxes for the government, so they can invest in other new projects, and there is progress. And now, since the last 20 years, since there was a very important summit called the Earth Summit in 1992, organized in Rio, Brazil. So that was when they coined this term sustainable development. And so the definition of sustainable development that the United Nations give is that the development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So that's essentially the concept of sustainability applied to development, so that not only we are able to use and live prosperously in the present, but also we leave a better world for the future generations. So that is the concept and the idea behind sustainable development. And then in 2012, which was the 20 years of the anniversary of the first Earth Summit in Rio, which was held in 1992. Which was, so they adopted the global goals. The United Nations adopted the global goals, and it's called the Sustainable Development Goals, in short SDGs, which you can further look up internet. You will find a lot of information, but I will just briefly cover what they are. So there are like 17 important SDGs that the United Nations, in agreement with all the countries around the world, have agreed that this will be the goal that the whole world and all the countries will work to achieve for 2030. So these are these are combining these three concepts of environment, social, and economic. And so you have different goals, and each goal is again linked to a lot of things. So you're talking about poverty reduction in countries like in Africa or in Asia, and also, but you're also talking about taking action on climate change. Water is an important topic, and also looking at innovation in industry so that companies can become more environmentally friendly, and also reduce social inequality and injustice, and there is peace in the world. So there's a lot of very broad topics, but these are all considered as important pillars. Each of these 17 goals are considered as important pillars in order to achieve a better world for all humanity. And so this is the target that the world is working in general. And every few years, they review where we have achieved. So what happens now is that each country or a group of countries, for example, in Europe, it is usually taken up by the European Union, which is a conglomerate, which is the European Union has about 27 countries. All the Western European countries are under the European Union. So they have the goals, and then each country takes up these goals and then divides it according to their own requirement and specific requirements. And in the case, for example, in the case of UAE, so you have the different regions of UAE. So it's so you have your goals are more specifically about based on the 17 goals. So UAE has about 6 different pillars, which is again more specific to the needs and the requirements of where UAE is, and the strategy that you have, that your government has, and also the specific requirements of the region of the Middle East where UAE and Dubai is located. No, so for example, one key strategy for UAE is looking at the developing a world-class healthcare, investing in the knowledge economy, basically setting up world-class universities and coming up with innovation. So there's a lot of focus by the government is there. And another key focus of UAE, since the UAE has one of the main exports of UAE is oil, petroleum to the world, and so that's one of the very big important economies. So we're also talking about investing in sustainable environment and infrastructure that you have in order to reduce the environmental footprint of this industry. And then looking at public safety, and then also looking at societal aspects. So this is the goal that UAE has, and this is something that the sustainability department of the UAE government works to achieve these goals, and includes these strategies in their day-to-day management, and also shaping the future the country's goals for the future. In comparison, for example, in the case of the European Union, which I said we have about 27 countries under the European Union, and so our priorities are about 6 different priorities here. So we are talking, the main one, for example, is the European Green Deal, which is in this, the European Commission wants to make Europe the first carbon neutral continent by 2050. So when I say carbon neutral, what it means is that Europe wants to completely switch to renewable energy. That means energy, for example, coming from solar, wind, even coming from biomass that doesn't emit carbon emissions, excess carbon emissions into the atmosphere, because that's what is contributing to global climate change. And so I will cover that in the later slides. And they also want to offset, that is compensate if there is some emissions from the other industries that you cannot substitute by renewable energy, to offset it or to substitute that by afforestation projects, like planting trees or investing in projects in other parts of the world in order to compensate for the emissions that they do. So that's one key things that they have with respect to the European Green Deal. And then there is a very big focus on the social aspects of it. So we are talking about an economy growth, but it's also an economic growth that works for all people. Everyone is involved and everybody can prosper. And then there's a focus a bit on Europe fit for the digital age. So there is a lot about digital literacy, because Europe has a lot of old population, because it's a very old population. So you have a lot of people above the age of 50, 60 years old, and who are not used to digital tools like computers, working with smartphones. So, and then all the applications that are there. So now it's also, there is a lot of interest by the governments to train citizens to use digital tools. And then there is another focus, which are not so much into environment or social, but it's more related to Europe's focus on the outside world and democracy and things like that, which are very specific to Europe. So so based on this, so I think I just want to give you some ideas about what, for example, one of the goals, which is SDG 11, which is sustainable cities and communities. So the goal of this SDG is to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, and resilient and sustainable. So these are each term has a very broad, you can do a PhD thesis on each of these terms when you talk about inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. So there's a lot of ideas and strategies that needs to be done. But essentially the idea is to make sure because Europe is a very urban, almost 70% of the population of Europe lives in cities or urban centers. So the rural part of Europe is, it has less population. So the idea here in Europe is to make sure that all the cities are not just sustainable from an environmental perspective, which you are talking about air pollution, water pollution, and things like that, but also from a sustainable, from a social perspective, it's also good. For example, the goals that we have, this is just some of the goals that they have in Europe. So we are talking about reducing and recycling the waste, that the municipal waste that cities are generating. Also talking about air pollution. Even noise is an important thing, because you have a lot of noise generated in cities by traffic. So how do you reduce that noise in general? And also, for example, even they track that how do you reduce the number of people killed in road accidents, because that's a social aspect of it. So these are some of the goals that Europe has. And some examples from Barcelona, where I'm there. So Barcelona is a very dense city. I'm not sure if you looked it up, but you can look it up on Google, and you'll see how Barcelona, if you see the Google Maps, you'll know it's a very dense city. And so it has a lot of cars, and people, there's a lot of noise is a big problem. So like 5 years ago, they introduced the city council introduced this concept of super blocks, where in certain streets they cut off access to cars, and then they make them pedestrian streets. So in fact, I live in this neighborhood, so I'm very close to where you see these photos are. And so instead of 3 lanes of cars, so you only have 1 lane, and the rest of the lanes are dedicated to pedestrians to walk, or for children to do activities. So in a way, also they plant trees, so that way it helps reduce the temperature of the road during summer months. And of course, it's a very, because the good thing for Barcelona is that it has a very good climate. Maybe it's not applicable like this in Dubai, because in summers you have very high temperatures. But this something that is been now developed, and it's quite well received by residents, because they are seeing that their quality of life has improved. Because you don't have a lot of noise, and you have a green space for doing activities with your children and with your friends. And now the Barcelona is now implementing this model across the rest of the cities. So, for example, this one, the picture that you see on the right is one of the streets in the city center, close to where 2 years ago this used to be just roads for traffic. 3 lanes of road for traffic, but now they have blocked traffic and diverted the traffic to other streets. And then made this for residents who are living there, and then also set up local activities and shops. And so it's a way to improve the environment, but also from a social perspective to improve the quality of life for the residents. And there is a lot of focus on trees and plants, and because there is a requirement in Barcelona to make it more green. So this is not, this concept is also now being used in other cities. It's like in Paris, or if you go to Brussels, which is the capital of the European Union, or you go to any major European cities, the concept of these super blocks, but is being applied in order to, at least in the city center, to reduce the access of cars and not and give more importance to pedestrians and people who live there. So that's one initiative that they have taken up. The other thing is for looking at sustainable buildings. And again, so there is, I think in Dubai as well, there's a lot of buildings that are very, very innovative, where the buildings are reduced, have a very low consumption of energy compared to other traditional buildings. Here, this was buildings from, I would say, 15 years ago, 15 or a little more than that. So, for example, the building on the left is like a breathable building. So the plastic, the white films that you see on the exterior. So it is it's like an exterior skin of the building. So it's not fixed. It's kind of changes shape depending on the temperature of the outside, and helps to regulate the temperature inside the building. So that way you are able to reduce the energy that is required by the building for air conditioning, for example. Another example is also from Barcelona. These are two buildings from Barcelona. Is the building that has a lot of built with a lot of recycled wood. Wood is, instead of concrete, they've used wood as a sustainable material, and they have used urban forest as a concept to make sure to reduce the temperature inside the building, because you have a lot of plants, so they basically regulate the microclimate inside the building, and improve the quality of life for the people who are living and working in these buildings. So, of course, this is something that is everybody would like to have a lot of plants inside their building. But here they have taken it and applied to the whole building, and all the facade of the building is completely covered in plants. And they have noticed that the quality of life for the people who are working and the energy consumption in these buildings are much lower than conventional buildings. So there's some concepts that I'm just saying, but of course, you will have to have a lot of different sectors that you're working, different types of backgrounds that you would need to contribute to this. And another example is concept of the other SDG wanted to focus was on the climate change aspect, which is one of the important sustainable development goal of the United Nations. I'm assuming, I'm hope that you've read about climate change. You've seen it in the news about what the global warming is and how it is contributing to changing the climate in different parts of the world. For example, if you read in the news that in Dubai or in UAE in general, the summer temperatures are very high compared to what it was before, and so you have to adapt to this new changing climate. So, for example, in Europe, we are also finding now temperatures, very extreme temperatures. For example, these are photos from this summer in August. For example, the one photo on the bottom right is from Greece, and the other one is from Germany, where there's a lot of flooding. So, and we had a very extreme heat event, which is not expected in Europe, which is more common in desert, like in Sahara, in Africa. And so there is now change of weather patterns that is happening. And now all countries are working to adapt to this scenario, but also reduce our emissions, because one of the main reasons for climate change, as what the scientists have said, is the pollution, the carbon emissions that is coming from our activities as human beings around the world. So we are also trying to reduce that emissions in order to reduce this impact on the atmosphere, and consequently reduce the impact. So this is something that all countries around the world are working on. For example, here in European Union, so the some of the targets is looking to reduce this greenhouse gas emissions. So here we are talking about greenhouse gas. These are gases like, for example, carbon dioxide, methane. These are some of the gases that are emitted during industrial agricultural activities. Even when you're driving, you're burning petrol, you emit CO2, carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide. And so these are gases that contribute to the greenhouse effect. So that's why they are called the greenhouse gases in general. So that's like a mix of combination of gases. So the countries around the world have a goal to reduce it. And for example, in Europe, so they have reduced it by 25% compared to the baseline of 1990. And the idea by 2050 is to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by zero, like by completely to have all the energy coming from renewable energy, to invest in projects that they are to reduce emissions from further in order to prevent further increase in the temperature. And there is a lot of investment happening, and there's a lot of jobs opportunities now working in the sustainability space, because all the countries around the world, including UAE or India or US, there's a lot of focus on how do we change the economy, how do we change the infrastructure in order to be better prepared for the future challenges of climate change. For example, in Europe, there is a lot of support from, in general, Europeans. So this was a survey done by the European Commission to see how the society, the citizens are involved, and Europeans in general are one of the populations that has a lot of awareness about climate change, because you see the impact on it on your day-to-day life, because it's one of the regions where the average increase in temperature is higher than the global average. So we are already seeing, for example, I can personally have seen in the last 6 years how the weather in Barcelona has changed. It has become warmer, and we have a lot of unpredictability with respect to rainfall. And so this is occurring in other parts of Europe. And so there is a lot of public support for governments to take action. So here, there's a government, there is a lot of focus on that. So there's a lot of focus, for example, on completely changing all the cars to electric cars. By 2035, we have a goal to completely change all the cars that are new cars that are sold in Europe to become completely electric. There is also focus on changing fuel sources to produce energy. Instead of using natural gas to produce energy, you are maybe using hydrogen, which is a green fuel. So these are some of the things that Europe is doing. And I don't want to touch upon everything because it's very, very broad. But so, for example, so the main concepts when you're talking about climate resilience are two concepts. So one is you're talking about mitigation. And the other thing, because mitigation is something, these are actions that you reduce, that help to reduce your emissions. For example, sustainable transport, for example, electric vehicles, or using energy that is coming from renewable energies like solar, wind, etc., and ensure that the appliances that we use at home are more energy efficient, the buildings that we are living are more energy efficient, etc. And then, for example, also there is a concept of personal habits that I would touch in the next slide, that each of us, apart from what the governments can do, but each individual at an individual level, what we can do to reduce our personal footprint, environmental footprint, and that way we contribute to a global action, global goal of reducing our impact. And the other thing is looking at adaptation, is basically saying that the climate has already changed. So how do we are better prepared for future disasters? So this is another area that there is a lot of opportunity for example, civil engineers, or there's a lot of work for environmental engineers or environmental planning people to work in this piece. There's a lot of investments happening by governments to better prepare for future climate scenarios. For example, some of the personal actions that you can and we can take are, of course, to look for sustainable mode of transport. So at least in Europe, because again, as I was saying, here the weather is very, except for a few months, most of the year the weather is more pleasant. So there's a lot of people can use bicycles quite frequently throughout the year instead of using cars, for example. And then saving energy in your home is another way. And for example, in your school, if you are able to reduce your energy use, not to waste energy, and also in terms of waste, in terms of recycling your waste, using organic waste to produce energy. So these are concepts that are quite well known in the field of sustainability. And also another important topic is food, and to look at eating more sustainable food, more food that is locally sourced. This is another concept that is very much becoming popular in Europe, because there's a lot of studies that said that when you are eating food that is transported from other countries. So there is a lot of emissions that happens because of the transport and the packaging that they do. So there is a lot of focus now here to eat more local food, and also food that is grown organically. So it's also healthy for you and also good for the environment. And also, again, talking about you reducing wastage of paper, and also try to be in a community that is more sustainable, basically educating your neighbors, your friends about this topic, your family, talk about these topics, and try to make a society that is more sustainable. So these are some of the, again, this list is very, very big, but these are some of the things I found in this slide that I found on the internet. It was quite useful. And this is something that I was also involved when I was a student like you. I was also involved in eco groups and working with my friends and try to encourage our school and universities involved in projects, and it was very, very interesting as a student for me when I was when I was your age. So and I think it's important that you all also take up these and inculcate these values in your day-to-day life. And since I mentioned also about potential career opportunities, of course, this is a very broad area, and so there is a lot of scope for people with careers in sustainability. For example, my personal experience, I did engineering in energy and environment, and then I was working for Infosys, which is a big multinational company from India, but I was working in their corporate sustainability team. And now all big companies have a sustainability division, which is working to make sure the companies are sustainable. So there is a very good focus for sustainability managers there. But also, if again, depending on your interest, if you are looking at, for example, more biology or botany and environmental management, so there is a lot of opportunities in that scope. And also, I mentioned about green buildings. So there is a lot of focus on making sure all the buildings that are built across the world are more sustainable. So there is a concept called the Green Building Certification Standards. So there is a lot of work and opportunities to focus on that as a career if you're interested in more buildings and civil engineering and things like that. But also on the economic aspect as well, we're talking about, if you're looking at commerce, but there is also focus a bit on sustainable financing, sustainable from a lot of consulting companies who are usually traditionally working in the economic space. They also have divisions now within them where they are focused on the economic aspects, but more focused on the sustainability aspects. And of course, so these are some of the numbers that I found from the US, but it also applies to, for example, UAE, Europe, and other parts of the world. And I think I'm already more than half an hour into my discussion. So please feel free to ask me. And so thank you for your patience, and please feel free to ask me any questions that you had. Sorry. Reshma ma'am, sorry, you have. So I'm done with my presentation. So please feel free to ask me questions.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you,
Nahida.
sir.
Yes, Nahida, you can carry.
I think Seema have something to ask. Yes, Seema, you can. Yes, Seema.
Yes, thank you, Naida. Sir, I would just like to ask that what do you think the government should do regarding the IPCC's Red Alert, the report that was released this year in August 9th? So they did put up the Red Alert via that report. So what do you think should be done in regards to that?
I think so. The governments, so the IPCC report is very, very clear. I mean, this is the 6th report, but the scientists have been telling the previous reports that this is going to happen. And now we are already seeing impacts of very grave impacts of climate change happening in across the world. So the governments have to now seriously consider climate change as an important aspect because at the end, so there is a lot of focus on the governments, more to focus, for example, on the economic aspect of them, to have industries, have more jobs, and the traditional way to look at it. But I think what governments need to do is to have, for example, in Europe, it's already there because now anything that they're talking about, we are already talking about. If you're setting up an industry, they also look at the economic and social, environmental and social aspect of it. So there's a lot of focus now to move away from fossil fuels. So, for example, I know in UAE is a complicated thing because the economy of UAE is a lot based on petrochemical industry. There's a lot of petrochemical industry, which is also contributing to global climate change. I know, for example, they are already looking at alternative fuels, for example, to produce hydrogen or there is you have a lot of solar energy in UAE because you have sun almost throughout the year. To how do you produce energy from renewable energies? So there is a lot of focus on that, and I think. But what my personal experience is that we need to be governments need to take more action quickly because we are running out of time. I think so. It's a bit slow, I would say, and especially not just to mitigate, but also prepare for emergencies, because otherwise you are going to have more effects on people, unfortunately.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Sir, as an innovation manager, when it comes to sustainability, what are the challenges that you face when it comes to this sustainable development? When you work on such projects, what are the main challenges that you face?
Okay, so it has become, I would say, when I started working in this space, when 10 years ago, 11 years ago, the initial challenge was there was not a lot of awareness among our teams about sustainability. So it was difficult in the beginning to create the importance, to explain to the teams the importance of sustainability initiatives and why it's important to do. And I think, but the last 10 years, it has changed. There is already a change, and most teams, most companies already understand the importance of sustainability now. So it's a little easier now. But still, you have challenges. For example, with respect to always in terms of priorities, so sometimes the priority of sustainability comes after economic priority to economic aspects. So there is still that reluctance to be fully committed from when we are working with our management or with other companies. So we still feel that reluctance is there, but that's slowly changing, I would say. Apart from that, from a technology perspective, again, I would say there is a lot of technologies already existing. I would say there is a lot of technology that is already existing with very innovative technologies to change. But then there is a lot of systemic processes that needs to be changed. Because there is already a process that people are used to. So there is also a reluctance to change in general. So that's another thing that you will find when you're talking about innovation, is that you're coming up with new systems, new technologies, new processes, but then you are also trying to implement it in a very traditional hierarchical structure. So there's always some resistance to change. And I think that's a very key thing that to overcome, to innovate, is that to break that resistance and break that barrier that you have. It's a more what the challenges that you will typically find are more systemic challenges rather than technological challenges, because the technologies is already there. There's a lot of innovation in technology that is happening. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Do you have any queries? Any more queries? Okay, now let's move ahead.
Okay.
That was indeed a wonderful and informative presentation. Thank you, sir, for sparing your valuable time to give us such an amazing presentation. Our chief guest, Mr. Digu Archami, gave us a great lesson today, and we are really grateful for that, sir. As a token of gratitude and appreciation, we would like to present you a certificate of gratitude.
Thank you for this opportunity, Nahida, and also to Reshma ma'am and all of you for your attention. And it was been great to interact with all of you. And I hope it's been useful what I've shared. And you can contact me through Reshma ma'am if you have any further queries, and I would be happy to answer them in the future.
Sure, sir. It was our pleasure, sir. To have
Okay.
you. Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. So I think probably you have other classes to attend, and so I would if there is nothing further questions, I think I would we'll probably connect another time. Hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you very much, and everyone, please take care, and good luck with everything. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Now we have Asdia Abu Bakr with a word of thanks.
He left. It's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's okay.
A warm and graceful afternoon to our most valued Honorable Chief Guest, Mr. Digu Archami, Vice Principal, Supervisors, Teachers, and all my dear friends, and everyone gathered here. I'm Asli Abu Bakr. It is my immense pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks to dignitaries assembled here. My most sincere thanks to the Almighty God for making today's event a resounding success. With His blessings and grace, we are able to make this event what it was. I would like to thank our chief guest, Mr. Digu Archami, who honored this function with his inspirational thoughts on the topic sustainability in European countries. I would like to thank our Honorable Vice Principal, Mrs. Sindhu Samet, for her valuable words and support. My heart felt a thanks to the Principal, Miss Karen Robinson, Head of various departments, and the faculty for their valuable contribution, guidance, and engagement in all our efforts. I owe special gratitude to the teachers in charge, students, and volunteers who have worked hard to ensure that this occasion becomes a memorable success. Last but not least, thanks to our beloved audience who made this event even grand. Conserve resource, sustain life, educate human to be technologically progressive. Science technology open doors to enhancement of environment and quality life. Thank you.
Thank you, Aslia. I request everyone to stand in attention position for the UAE National Anthem, followed by the Indian National Anthem.
عيشي بلادي عاش اتحاد إماراتنا عشتي لشعب دينه الإسلام هديه القرآن حصنتك بسم الله يا وطن بلادي 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 بلاد حماك الإله شرور الزمان أقسم